Hello and welcome to NPC. That stands for Next Portable Console. It's a show about the games we take with us. I'm one of your hosts, Brendon Bigley, and I'm here with my blue button-down twin, John Voorhees.
Hello, hello. It's Blue Shirt Day for sure.
Blue Shirt Day. And also someone who didn't get the memo, Federico.
I'm sorry, I'm not a... What do you say, a blue-collar worker? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, that's us. We're blue-collar workers today.
What is a blue-collar worker and a white-collar worker? Like a white-collar worker works in an office?
White-collar worker person's got they've got an email job.
Okay. And a blue-collar as like a manual job.
Yeah. They make things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our manual job is to play with handhelds. That counts.
Yeah, sure.
We are working with our hands.
I think people would disagree with you, but that's fine.
No, that works.
It's perfect. No one's gonna have any qualms with that. I do.
No.
I maybe for XL, I'll change. I have almost the exact same sweater as you, Federico, in my closet right now. I'll switch to that for XL.
You should do it. Okay, love it.
I'll play both sides of the field.
Brendon, welcome back. We're gonna have a Brendon recap later. John, we have some news to cover, and then we have some fun topics. I love what you put in the notes, John. I gotta say, this name that you came up with.
Yeah. So we talked last week about, or maybe it was the week before, about Anbernic's new device that swivels out. Right? It's square. You swivel it out. I guess it was 2 weeks ago because Brendon was here.
Yeah.
And I gave it a name. I'm calling it the Anbernic RG Flic.
Yes.
You're gonna
The
flick it because there were two new videos that showed up on the SBC Gaming subreddit, and it looks kind of cool. I mean, supposedly it's metal. One downside, there's no headphone jack, as I think Brendon pointed out in our Slack channel. But yeah, it looks. I mean, there's not a lot new here. They're not showing off gameplay or anything yet. All they're doing is flicking it open and shut. It's interesting to me the way it's designed because it swivels out. It still covers when the screen is at the top, it's still covering maybe a third to a half of the piece below it. And the buttons are recessed in it, which obviously gives it the space in order to close and not hit the buttons. But I think the design's really clever, and I can't wait to get my hands on one of these.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm basically sold on this. The funny thing that I was talking to some people in our Discord channel for this show about it yesterday, and I think the thing that makes me laugh about it is like every time, for as long as we've been doing this podcast, every time Anbernic announces a new device, there's like you just sit there and wait for the one big trade-off.
Yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes the trade-off is, like obvious from the specs. Sometimes it's like, oh, they put a 540p screen in here for some reason. Or sometimes it's like it has one analog stick but can play up through PS2 stuff. But sometimes it's a real own goal. Like sometimes it's really just Anbernic doing it to themselves, right? So I think like a great example of this is the Vita and the Vita Pro, which we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, marketing it as a Vita and then not having it be powerful enough to really play most of, or in some cases, any of the Vita library. Yeah. In this case, it's another own goal situation because everyone was intrigued by this device, except for like the doomers who were like, the top screen's going to swivel up and then fly off like a shuriken into the wind. But mostly people were like, what a cool form factor. I'm excited about this thing. And then they started marketing it as an MP3 player.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a headphone jack. And like all you needed to do was not market it as an MP3 player. Every image and every video they show starts with them having it's like a little like fake cassette tape on the thing, and they're listening to music through it. And like, sure, you can plug in USB-C headphones. That's totally fine. Maybe it'll have Bluetooth. I don't know. It seems to be running Android. Yeah, so it might have Bluetooth, but that also introduces latency. And in general, I think there is as I've learned in the past year, a surprisingly rich market for people who are still using MP3 players. There's a world in which like this was one that people picked up because it blended their two hobbies together.
Yeah, I think not having a headphone jack is a real bummer because one of the things I've learned from these Anbernic devices too, a lot of these lower cost devices, pairing with Bluetooth just isn't a very good experience.
Yeah,
it can,
right.
it can be really dicey. And I have something to talk about later where that's absolutely the case because, not all Bluetooth is created equal. There are some devices like the MCon, for instance, that does a rock solid job of connect it once. And then every time you turn it on, it very quickly connects back with your phone. But a lot of these Anbernic and other more budget handhelds, it can be a bit of a struggle to get a Bluetooth headset connected to it. And so it's nice to have that fallback. That's why I have, Apple AirPods in my bedside table for at night where sometimes it's just easier to plug in a 3.5 millimeter jack and listen to your game that way instead of trying to fiddle with settings in a handheld.
I have been using for years now a modded pair of Apple EarPods. So the USB, the headphone jack ones with the cable.
How did you mod them?
With one of them chopped off. So that it's called the monopod, basically. Just because I like to hear like audio or music, whatever.
Yeah.
But also I want to keep an eye on my dogs, for example.
Sure.
If they do something.
It's transparency. It's transparency mode the old-fashioned way.
Exactly. Dogs always do something at night.
Yeah.
Dog owners know they always come up with these interesting ideas for things to do at night, and so it's important to be able to listen. But yeah, I mean, why would you have cassette tapes and all of those things, and then not have a headphone jack?
Yeah, it's very funny. Like to be clear, it doesn't change my desire to get one of these in the slightest. And it also doesn't even change my desire to use one of these as like a combo MP3 player and handheld. I'm fine using USB-C headphones as long as their port allows for it, or Bluetooth or whatever. But it just seems like the obvious thing that should be there that's not, which is always the case with Anbernic.
And knowing Anbernic, I'm not convinced that necessarily that USB-C port will support audio. It may just be for charging.
Who knows? Yeah,
you don't know. We don't know at this point, but there, plenty of these more budget devices go pretty low end on the USB-C ports or the USB.
I will also say, as a person who has really gotten back into using my Miu Flip a lot recently, I sure have not used the analog sticks once outside of when I was testing it for a review over a year ago at this point. Like that was the time that I used the analog sticks so I could like talk about what it was like to use them in that review. And I have not played a single game that needed them ever since. So I'm pretty happy with no analog stick on this thing. Like even if they put like the circle pad sliders, like I don't really care. Like this is going to be primarily a Game Boy, and that's totally fine for me.
Yep.
We should address on the show obviously the price increase of the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. You can now spend $900 on a PlayStation 5 Pro.
There are a lot of things you can do in this life, and that's one of them.
Free will, you can choose, and one of your options would be to spend almost $1,000 on a PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. We reached the point where you can potentially get a pretty good gaming laptop for the price of a PlayStation 5 Pro. It's an incredible scenario that if you asked me 2 years ago, who could have imagined this? Now, I've seen some speculation over the past couple of days that RAM prices may be actually coming down.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
I looked at those charts and it's like, they came down for a couple of days. I don't know if we're seeing a trend yet. It's too early, I think.
There's this speculation going on that's happening because essentially OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, they did not end up paying for all of the RAM that they ordered in South Korea from Amazon.
They signed a letter of intent to buy 40% of the world's RAM and have bought 0% of the world's RAM.
Wow. And Google has some sort of compression algorithm that supposedly is going to make everything less RAM intensive for AI companies. I mean,
these companies, guys. I mean,
It's a crazy world right now.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even.
I
know
guess
what to say.
I wonder about consoles being this expensive and what it means like long term for video games as a hobby. You know, like it's already a pretty limiting hobby, I think, because of the price to to get in the door. Now that it's going to be $1,000, like imagine when the PS6 launches, like the cost of that is going to be astronomical, and the new Xbox is apparently just like a beefy PC. First of all, the Switch 2 seems more and more like the thing you should probably buy, I think, in that world if you're a console person. But also, I think PC simultaneously becomes more desirable.
Yep, I agree.
Because you can get one on sale like I did.
It's going to push people that direction, don't you think? I mean, that's ultimately where I think this is heading.
I think there's the convenience aspect of console gaming that people get behind and people go wild for, and I totally understand that. But I do think the bottom line is always the price. Like, how much does it cost, and what are the benefits of that thing that I'm buying at a lower cost, or the trade-offs? And in the case of PC, it's like you can wait for a sale on Black Friday, get something like I did or you did, John, and then your entire library just lives in Steam and is backwards compatible, like maybe forever.
Yep.
Not too many, and you don't have to pay a monthly fee to play your games online with other people.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I just wrote on Mac Stories about the MacBook Neo and how over at Retro Grain Core, Russ just tested that out as an emulation laptop, and it did really well. I mean, it did really well. It didn't play Xbox, I think. It had a little trouble with some of the PS2 and some of the GameCube library for some reason that he had to fiddle with in order to get to work well. But it was playing even some Switch 1 games. I mean, it was doing the whole 9 yards there. And I don't know that I would buy a MacBook Neo as a gaming device, but if you're in the market for a budget laptop that also plays games, that's a great choice now, I think.
Yeah. And also early days, right? Like, I mean, this is a new chip technically for all of this software to be running on. Like, give it 6 months, it'll probably be better. Give it a year, it'll probably be better.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on there in terms of some of the compatibility between the emulators and using the A18 Pro and the Neo. But yeah, I think they'll probably get that worked out too to some degree.
And I'm sure you guys have talked about this already on your various other podcasts. But I mean, how infuriating was it to watch that video knowing that your iPhone could do the same stuff if the App Store allowed it?
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. Not to mention an iPad. So, back to the topic of the prices and the costs. We should also mention that A&EO, they confirmed that more devices will be affected. They recently announced that they were going to stop selling the A&EO Next 2, which we covered last week on the show. And they also confirmed that a bunch of other devices will be discontinued when stock runs out. The A&EO Pocket Vert, the fancy Game Boy that they have, the Pocket S Mini, the Pocket DS, still available for pre-orders, but they only have 200 units available, possibly less now. The Conquer Pocket Fit and the Pocket Fit 8 Elite will be relaunched in phases at some point, but not now. And the Conquer Fit will begin production now or shortly, but with limited quantities. So, I mean,
that's a shame. Those are actually some of their better devices.
Just when they were doing something interesting, I think.
Yeah.
This started happening for them, and it's not been a good 6 months for A&E.
No. It's one thing to put the brakes on the Next 2, which was far outside of the budget of the vast majority of people. But when you're talking, and look, all their stuff is expensive. I mean, the Vert and everything is way too pricey for my taste. But the Conquer Fit was a little bit more reasonable and an interesting device, and the Mini that they put the brakes on too. That one actually is a lot more reasonable. It's just a shame to see.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I&EO has become the main character of 2026 in the handheld space. I feel like we're talking about them the same way we were talking about Ambernick a year ago.
Yes. Well, get ready for a new main character approaching, the Sony PlayStation Handheld in 2028. There's a bunch of new rumors that have come out over the past 24 hours. Apparently, the rumored PlayStation 6 Handheld will be somewhere in between an Xbox Series S and a base model PS5. More powerful than a Switch 2. We're looking at a handheld with RDNA 5 cores and 24 gigs of RAM. Capable of the latest FSR 3 and FSR 4, and potentially down the line, future FSR 5. And this will be expensive. And Sony is targeting, until a while back, rumors were sort of saying that it was going to be a late 2027 thing. And it's increasingly looking like more companies are hedging their bets on 2028. I also see a rumor that Valve may push the Steam Deck 2 once again. Initially it was rumored to be 2026, and then it was 2027. Now the rumors are suggesting 2028. So it looks like this. So hopefully, if they're monitoring the situation, as they say, but it looks like it's not going to be 2026 for sure, and late 2027 may still be an option. But realistically, I think we're looking at this next generation of handhelds in 2028 at some point, and it's impossible to predict now what the cost of a PlayStation handheld with those specs may be. But for sure, this is going to be more than $500. I think it's pretty much obvious. And potentially looking at, I don't want to say 900 like a PS5 Pro, but for sure that window of 700 to 800, I would feel pretty comfortable with that speculation.
I would guess 800 minimum.
Yeah.
And especially if they have multiple specs of it, I'm thinking 800 minimum, especially considering just like needing to put a screen on there. I imagine the screen will probably be pretty good.
Yeah. And unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, depending on which side you land on, it seems like more and more AI-based upscaling and frame generation will be a key component of all these handhelds going forward. I mean, the Switch 2 uses an old version of NVIDIA's own DLSS. I think it's version 2. But all of these handhelds, especially if you don't want to make them too expensive and you want to rely on some kind of upscaling and some kind of frame generation, it looks like that technology will be everywhere. So like it or not, and I've personally sort of come around on DLSS 5. I think NVIDIA completely botched that announcement from a PR perspective and from a technological perspective. It was the wrong thing to show at the wrong time. But this is happening. So it looks like this Sony handheld will have FSR. And I'm curious to see what Valve will do, personally. The Steam Deck right now doesn't really have... I mean, it's capable of FSR 1 or 2. Some people have modded some games running on the Steam Deck to use FSR 3. It looks really horrible when you do that.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Yeah,
it's pretty brutal. I
remember when Clair Obscure came out, there were a lot of people who were throwing on, what is it, like Decky Loader plugins to get FSR working on there.
Yeah.
Horrible looking technology on a Steam Deck. So we'll see what happens, but take these rumors with a huge grain of salt. And in lighter and better, funnier, quick news, the Dolphin emulator, guys, now supports the Game Boy player. Remember the Game Boy player? Did you ever have a Game Boy player for the Nintendo GameCube?
No.
Never?
No. I got a GameCube when I was
You did?
22 years old. And I just got it to play Melee, so...
I got a Game Boy player. It was a little base that you put under the GameCube.
Yeah.
And it allowed you to slot in Game Boy cartridges and play Game Boy cartridges on an emulator on the GameCube. It was super rare to find, and I convinced my video game store friend guy to order one from me. And I remember it was my prized possession when I was a kid to have a Game Boy player. I was the only friend in our group with a GameCube, and so I was already quite, I was the weird one. All my friends had a PS2, and I was, just telling them, no, you should be playing Nintendo games. But then when I got the Game Boy player and they saw me emulating Nintendo GBA games on the GameCube, they were like, yeah, this guy is so weird. And now you can basically, with Dolphin, you can have an emulator inside an emulator, which is incredible. So
that is wild. You don't still have that, do you, TG?
I do. I most certainly do.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it's at my mom's house.
Nice.
One of the rarest things on the resale market in retro games is the disc that you need to put into the GameCube to use the Game Boy player.
I have the base station and I have the box with the disc.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not so weird anymore, Federico. Now you've got.
I know, right? Who's weird now? Who's weird now? Huh? Anyway, Brendon, how was PAX?
PAX was awesome. So I was out last week because I was in Boston for PAX East. PAX is a video game convention that is kind of all-encompassing. You know, you have a couple AAA developers there showing stuff off, but mainly I would say it's like an even split between tabletop gaming, like board games and stuff. They have a huge section that's just for people to like set up board games and play them, and indie games. And I enjoy spending most of my time going and talking to indie developers, learning about what they're working on, hearing about, you know, just like what the business is like for them. It's I think a really rewarding and engaging experience. The thing I was most surprised about this year, though, was the amount of hardware that was there. That's kind of new. Like there's always usually like a computer parts manufacturer that shows up and is like, check out, you know, our RAM or whatever. But this year, like Lexar was there, SanDisk was there, which was kind of new. And there were a couple like pre-built PC companies, which honestly, one of the things that I found most interesting was these pre-built PC companies. They had like, if you buy it right now on the show floor pricing versus online MSRP.
Yeah.
And that show floor pricing was like really great. And I was talking to some people who were like, if I was in the market for a computer right now, it wouldn't be wild to buy, given, you know, the price of everything right now, it wouldn't be wild to buy one on the show floor at PAX. But I had one meeting that I scheduled for the entirety of PAX. I got a lot of inbound emails from people who wanted to set up meetings. I was like, I'll just come to the booth. I'll, you know, chat normally. But there was one meeting I wanted to take, and it was I'll hold up the business card and hopefully not show the other side and dox the guy. But it was with Cracked, who is known for making the Nitro deck. Right. Which is a peripheral, which I don't think we talked about on the show because I think it was before the show's time. But it's a peripheral where you could take the original Switch, you would take the Joy-Cons off, and you would slide it into a thing that basically made it feel like the Steam Deck. And they had the Nitro deck, then they had the Nitro Deck Plus, which they're very adamant was not a revision, but was just another version of the Nitro deck. But I was really curious to see two things that they had at their booth. One of them was the Nitro Deck 2, and the other one was the Alt Pro. I'll talk about the Alt Pro first, because I think that's kind of an interesting one. It's just a normal controller. Like, it's just a regular controller. And I think for this company, who's known for making like kind of wild peripherals, like one of their biggest products right now is a Guitar Hero and Rock Band controller that you can buy.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Which I did get hands-on with and is incredible. And like, I think there's a reason that people are going wild for it. It's like really bringing back Clone Hero, which is this version. It's like an open source version of Guitar Hero that you can play on basically all major platforms. And the fact that that thing connects like via Bluetooth, but also to all your old consoles is like really pretty wild. Yeah. But you know, they're known for making stuff like that. And the Old Pro is just their take on like a regular controller. And, you know, I talked to the CEO of the company and I was like, you know, what's going on with this? Like, this actually seems kind of more left field than anything else you've made to make something normal. And he was like, people just really like the company. Like, people just really like the way our buttons feel and our D-pads feel, and they want that in a normal controller, which I was thinking about. Like, I've gotten to a point where I'm basically locked into the way 8BitDo produces their controllers. Like, I any given day of the week, I'm switching between like 2 or even 3 8BitDo controllers, depending on what room I'm in and what device I'm using. And I've gotten so used to their D-pads and their analog sticks and their face buttons that, like, when I'm buying a new controller, I am almost comparing it against 8BitDo now because that's my baseline. And I can understand a world in which people are like, I feel that way about the Cracked controllers. and I just want that in like a normal controller feel. And there's not that much to say about it. Like, it kind of does feel like an 8BitDo Ultimate. You know, it has the dock and everything. It just looks kind of like an 8BitDo Ultimate controller, but it's a cracked one. But they have added a bunch of extra stuff that I think, takes it to another level. So they added like extra shoulder buttons. They have paddles on the back. They have like macro buttons and stuff like that. But it's also the debut of a new style of start and select button that they are going to start using on all of their devices going forward, is what they told me. So if you look at images of it, they're basically toggles that go up and down. So they're like little switches for start and select, where if you do start, or select, you would like flick this left toggle up, or if you wanted to start, you would flick this right toggle up. And if you want, like an Android back button or something, or a screenshot button, or like you want to program these things, you can then flick them down instead. It's an interesting, it's an interesting way of throwing two more buttons on a controller in like in an environment where most people have kind of landed on how you're supposed to design a controller like that.
Yeah.
And that was really like the main takeaway from the conversation was like, what goes into designing a controller that looks almost the same as everybody else's controller? How do you add your own spin to it? And that was one of the things that they really highlighted, is like, this is where we're going. So all of this takes me to the Nitro Deck 2, which all of this stuff is supposed to be launching around the same time. And the Nitro Deck 2, I wanted to get hands-on with, and I wanted to ask a bunch of questions about, because I was just curious, how did you learn from the original Nitro Deck and then the Plus revision? Because they also had different layouts. They had the analog sticks in different places. This one has the asymmetrical analog sticks this time around. It's also like a lot more tapered from a design perspective. It actually looks and feels a little bit more like a Legion Go like mini, I would almost say.
Okay. Yeah,
than a Steam Deck this time around.
The originals were so chunky.
They were really chunky. The thing about the Nitro Deck 2, if I needed to be blunt about it, is I really actually like the feeling of it a lot. Yeah. I think it loses a lot by trying to appeal and work with the original Switch and the Switch OLED as well. It's a universal device in that it works with all of these models of the Switch simultaneously. Because it's a telescopic controller at the end of the day. Like, it's a telescopic Bluetooth controller.
Oh, I see.
Which does mean that you're losing the functionality of the original Nitro Deck that allowed you to just, plug it into the Nitro Deck and have completely latency-less, no latency on your controller. That said, they do have a little peripheral that comes in the box that's a little tiny USB dongle that plugs into the bottom of the Switch 2 and then plugs into the bottom of the Nitro Deck 2. I just worry so much about like losing that thing or what you do with it. Plus, you also have to charge the Nitro Deck 2, which is not a problem that you had with the original. There are just a lot of trade-offs here that I worry about, I think, in the long-term viability of this. On top of all of this, and this is the thing that I talk about at any time we talk about Switch 2 peripherals, especially like this, is like, can you still fit it in the dock? Can you still use it as a dock? And the answer in this case is no. Like, it's too chunky to fit in the dock, and they don't have any like USB out that allows you to use it that way. I wonder about all of those trade-offs. Like, as much as I actually really do enjoy the look and feel of this thing, way more than I thought I did. Especially, I had the original Nitro Deck. I didn't love it. I ended up getting rid of it eventually. I think that this immediately in the hands felt like way, 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 way better than the original. But for $100, a thing that has that many trade-offs, I do worry about the viability of.
A lot of these seem to have a lot of trade-offs right now. I mean, that's the thing with the MOBA pad too. I mean, they're doing they're trying to do. I think the problem probably is for a lot of these companies is that the Switch 2 just isn't big enough. The volume's not there yet because things like the MOBA pad that came out at the end of the Switch 1's life when the Switch 1 was everywhere, and we're just not there with the Switch 2. So they're probably trying to straddle that line between the built-in audience of Switch 1s and then transition to Switch 2.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And I asked that pretty directly. I was like, is that the reason? Like, because you're, the Nitro Deck Plus came out towards the end of the Switch 1's life cycle as well. It's like, you're pretty early into the Switch 2 life cycle. Is that the reason behind it? And he was pretty upfront with me. He was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, there's a big market of people who are still using the Switch 1, so it would be weird to not cater to them, which I think is probably right. I would hope that eventually they will release, some kind of Plus revision of the Nitro Deck 2 as well.
Yep.
Hopefully one that has some kind of HDMI out maybe built into the thing, or, something that just has like a built-in USB-C port that you could just plug right into. I think that'd be very nice. I'm not like, I'm not ready to write off the Nitro Deck 2. I think I like it a lot more than I was expecting to, but I think those trade-offs are definitely pretty wild. The one other piece of hardware that I do want to talk about, though, that I saw on the show floor that I was really surprised by, AverMedia, who is known for making capture cards and a bunch of other stuff, they were on the show floor as well. And I'll be honest, I just haven't really kept an eye on AverMedia. I used to use their capture cards. I found that they failed a lot as I continued to use them. So I just haven't really paid attention to them as a company for a while. And when I walked by their booth, I saw a Nintendo Switch 2 plugged into a power outlet, and on a monitor was Metroid Prime 4. And I was like, oh, they made the thing that I've literally been asking for on this podcast for months at this point. And it's a thing that I purchased. I bought one. It's a little brick. It's existed for like 9 months or so. But it's a little brick where you just plug in the Switch 2 via USB-C on the bottom. You plug in the HDMI out here, and then you can plug that into your television. But it also has another USB-C port that you can plug into your computer, and it doubles as a capture card as well.
Nice.
Which is pretty sick. An all-in-one device like that, I think, is very interesting, especially considering, I used to have one of these for the Switch 1, and I liked it a lot from Genki. Did not have capture card support, but, just for traveling, is this really helpful to have, just like a little brick that can act as your entire Switch 2 dock.
Yeah.
But the fact that I could also be capturing video content from this device while I'm on the go as well is like amazing.
And a laptop is fantastic.
You're set. So, for me at least, a person who is traveling a pretty decent amount and is on the go all the time and does need to be capturing content pretty consistently, this is like an obvious pickup. And I think this was about $100. It's called the Elite Go. There is another version of it. I think it's called the Core Go or the Go Core. Doesn't have the capture card built in, and is, I think, $40 cheaper or something.
Maybe a little smaller too, probably.
Yes, it's definitely going to be lighter than this because this thing is pretty heavy. But it just acts as a dock, like a portable dock, which I was in the market for. So I just bought one right there and then on the show floor, and I like it a lot. Yeah, that's AverMedia.
Love it. Well, thank you, Brendon. That's quite an update. John, you also had something.
I do. I took delivery this week, guys, of the GameSir Pocket Taco.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's real.
A hard shell case.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
You push that. There's a little spot you can push it up and out, which is good because it'd be hard to pull from the top. There you have it. The case actually has the buttons printed on it, which makes it really nice because it only goes in one way. And so you slot it in there, and when you're ready to play, you push it out. That way it's not going to be in your bag and, maybe unfold or break or, it's got, it feels very sturdy. On the other hand, it has a lot of moving parts because it's got a hinge at the top and then a smaller hinge part way down. And what you do is, where's my phone? It's in my pocket. You open it up and you drop in your phone. Just like that. And right now you can see from the lights on here that it is actually already connected to my iPhone. And I can play games using Delta and that sort of thing using these buttons. Now, so far so good.
Okay.
I think the hardware is pretty good in terms of there's a pad in here. So the part that rests on your screen isn't going to scratch. That's where all the regulatory details are printed to. So it's kind of nice that that's all hidden. You don't have to see that. That'll be up against the glass. It's got shoulder buttons. You've got R1 and R2 and L1, L2 here on the top. You've got USB-C for charging it. You have a pass-through for your phone's charger at the bottom, and it just kind of grips it. Now, I've been pretty happy with how it feels to use. Like when it's in there, if you can see on video, this is the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which is the big chunky phone, and it fits in there just about perfectly. I mean, the gap, it's everything's kind of flush and flat, which is nice. And holding it, it's heavy because you've got a heavy phone and you're adding additional weight to it, but it makes it probably 2/3 wider than the phone by itself. It's because the two halves are roughly the same width as the phone itself. But that actually feels pretty good in the same way that an original Game Boy kind of feels good, because it gives you more to hang on to at the bottom, even though it's, your hands are very close together because you're using something the width of a phone.
I imagine your fingers are also resting on the shoulder buttons as well, right? Which probably adds to that grip a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, the shoulder buttons, not great, because this whole thing is, as you can see on the back, it's pretty shallow. Yeah. So you're resting your fingers there, and you can feel them and you can use them, but it's a little too shallow for shoulder buttons, I think, more than anything else. The buttons, probably can't hear this on the mic, but they're very clicky, very clicky, and they're a little laggy because this is using Bluetooth. And I would say the D-pad is my least favorite part, because you really have to hit it very intentionally in the direction that you want to go. There's and you can't really do the, moving things around with your finger in multiple directions. You really have to hit the ordinal points, because for instance, I was playing Pokemon Fire Red. I dropped that in there and I was naming my character, and I was like, I could tell I was having a hard time navigating the keyboard a little bit, to pick the letters out. And that was a bad sign right off the bat. So it's $35. It works. It's very hard to pair. I spent a half an hour trying to get this to pair. I finally kind of figured it out. The problem that GameSir has an app. They also have instructions that come in about 2-point font, and they don't really explain what to do, which of the instructions for Android phones, which are for iPhones, because it's different for each kind of phone. Plus, you can apparently pair this with a Switch. Why? I don't know. I
would do that.
I don't think it would fit. I haven't tried it, but I don't think it's wide enough to put a Switch in there. And why would you do that? I guess you can just use it. Obviously, you can use it as a standalone controller because it's just connected with Bluetooth. But as a controller, it's just not a great controller. And I think the problem here really comes down to, you could get a good budget handheld that plays Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games for like $50, right? On AliExpress on sale. This thing's already $35. If they up the quality of the buttons and all that, I think that you would end up with something that costs as much as a handheld itself without a screen, or start approaching that. And then it's just probably not economical to make or attractive for anybody to buy. It's fine for turn-based games like Pokemon. That was fine for that. Played a Kirby game for a little while for a platformer. Not too bad either. I mean, I didn't have problems with timing jumps and things like that. But I don't think I think it would be harder with things that required a lot of precision. So I give it a mild thumbs up. I wouldn't really recommend it, but it's not something that I'm going to use I think realistically, it's not something I will use very often. Okay. Although for Delta and in particular games, it's fine.
Okay.
I think where I'm landing, and maybe this is something I need to test for myself to really come to this conclusion, but something I talked about with the M-Con, maybe there is no good solution for using your phone as your handheld all the time. I think maybe having a dedicated device is the way to go.
Yeah.
If it's not the M-Con, if it's not the Pocket Taco, if it's not any of these other things that we've been testing over the past however many years, like Maybe there is no form factor that really makes that like the obvious move.
Yeah, no, I think I'm kind of heading there too. I mean, I think we've all been kind of chasing it at various times, and I think it's a combination of the hardware and just the fact that having your phone be your gaming device is just not my thing. I don't think at the end of the day, most of the time.
Yeah. Well,
thank you, John. Though that's it for this week. We're gonna talk about more hardware in NPC XL.
We are.
I have a new tablet to show off and talk about, and Brendon has something bigger than that. It's a PlayStation, kind of. It's a
kind of a
Superstation. We're gonna talk about that in NPC XL.
We are.
You can get that for just $5 a month on Patreon, and otherwise, we will be back next week. As always, the three of us. Oh no, I'm actually realizing now. Next week, I will be going to a comic book convention.
Oh,
So I will not be here.
Oh,
And it's gonna be John and Brendon.
All
Yes, I haven't been in a few years, and I'm going to Romix. It's a comic book convention in Rome, where
That's
in
cool.
addition to comic books, there's like vintage video games, retro gaming, manga, all kinds of things, action figures, all kinds of things.
nice.
Wow.
So I will be sending you pictures to you guys.
great. All right.
Well,
That's it.
that's it. We will be back.
Talk
See
to you
y'all.
later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.